Happy Arvo. Hello. Thank you so much for joining me today. How you doing? How many Australian accents are there really? Come on. I know you guys are hiding the true amount. How many are there really? Okay. I like how this has a disclaimer, like as if this video is, ABC is an Australian public broadcast service, just so you know. So they might be lying. They might be misleading you on how many Australian accents there are. Really. Check them out, ABC Australia. Link down below. This video is probably going to be annoying because I'm going to attempt to do all these different accents, and I suck at accents. I couldn't even do one, guaranteed. So that's my disclaimer. Let's do it.
Good eye. How you going?
Everything, mate. Good mates, good times, having a great time, mate. Yeah, we good mates.
See, they sound the same to me so far.
You know it when you hear it, right? The Aussie accent.
Hello, I'm Paul Barry. Welcome to Media Watch.
Hello and welcome to Gardening Australia.
Wow, look at that guy.
They find out that I do the voice of Bandit, right? They go, oh my God.
You know what it is. It's the good old meat pie.
If you know Australians or you are Australian, you've heard the voice. But you're not crazy.
I think you've heard the voice if you've lived anywhere but under a rock in the world for the last any number of decades.
If you think there might
or centuries.
Be little differences in the way Aussies speak around the country and between...
Actually, I guess it's kind of interesting to think, people before audio recordings, you really wouldn't have ever heard anybody speaking a different language or accent very often, would you? At all.
There might be little differences in the way Aussies speak around the country and between generations. Some of our top linguists agree.
It may be that this country will become the most valuable acquisition Britain has ever made.
To learn how close Australians are to the kind of regional accent variation you might get in the UK or the United States, I started reading what those linguists have to say. This paper looks at 4 parts of Victoria, Australia's most densely populated state, to see if there's any difference in the way people speak from one end to the other. It looks at one of the most characteristic accent features of that state, the one that makes Victorians say Melbourne instead of Melbourne or Melbourne. And
oh, so the truth is you guys all say it differently, because when I first said Melbourne, well, I called it Melbourne, and you guys told me that was wrong. Which I guess it is, but only to some of you.
It looks at one of the most characteristic accent features of that state, the one that makes Victorians say Melbourne instead of Melbourne or Melbourne. And
Melbourne. So does that mean I can start calling it Melbourne again? No. I think I'm going to stick with Melbourne.
Showed that in the state's north, it's dying out. But in the south, in the city of Melbourne itself and on the coastal town of Warrnambool, it's getting stronger.
In Warrnambool, the sound change was advancing. So that meant that...
How do you measure this stuff?
More people were merging those two sounds together, whereas in Mildura, only the older people were doing that. And it was like this sound change had reversed in the younger community.
Merging the L and L sounds is just one of the changes happening around Australia right now. Where I'm from in Western Australia, here is a word with 2 syllables.
Here.
New South Wales, it might just have 1.
I'm not even sure what word he's trying to say there.
In Queensland,
here,
you might say you're going to school.
Or hey ya. Like, hey ya, hey ya, hey ya, how you doing? Hey ya. I just realized that hey ya almost actually does sound like how you guys say here. Hey ya. There's almost no difference. Hey ya.
Or having a swim at the pool. In South Australia, they might drop the L entirely and sound more like school or pool.
Let's start with...
you don't want to swim in poo.
This one. Just read it out and then read it down into the camera.
There's no chance of clear skies here in Melbourne, but here we feel like going to the pool.
There's no chance of clear skies in Melbourne, but here we feel like going to the pool.
There's no chance of...
See, that guy did something special with the pool. And it's something, it's almost intangible. It's hard. I don't know how you guys do it, but you add in a little flair to the, he said poo. Poo.
Of clear skies in Melbourne, but here we feel like going to the pool.
There's no chance of clear skies in Melbourne, but here we feel like going to the pool.
Linguists stop short of calling these all new accents, and for good reason. But you're not alone if you've noticed the little differences when they do appear. Around Australia,
appear.
People take a lot of pride in their lingo and particular accent, and they're not above having a bit of fun with other Aussies on the subject.
Most Queenslanders tend to say France, demand, command. It's not demand, command, France, because we don't want to sound like a wanker.
When I went to Queensland, I had to get a bit nasally. Victorian, they speak. There's a little bit of an ochre twang to it, and in Sydney, it's a tiny bit stuffy.
Generally, no, I don't think people say, "Oh, you're from Melbourne," when I'm talking to them. I feel like it's a more gentle Australian accent, if there's such a thing.
Ultimately, the state you're from is only part of what makes an Aussie accent unique. For a better explanation, we need to look at the way people from different regions, generations, and social classes have expressed them.
You know, we also need to look at why my 2-year-old son sometimes says nair. Thanks to Bluey. Nair. Put your shoes on, son. Nair.
Themselves over time. Going back to ABC clips from just 50 years ago, it's pretty clear to see who's making an effort to sound a certain way and who's using their genuine voice.
What is our question? Oh yes, do Australians speak with a bad accent?
Extremely badly.
I think that they're lazy.
They speak as though they have a piece of barbed wire clamped on both sides of their jaw.
Did people used to be more like judgmental?
Loose tongues, loose mouth.
They speak like that with their mouth like that.
You speak nice. Nicely, actually. I like grammar too. Thank you for your correction.
Researchers looking at the diversity of...
Well, how about you two go look in the mirror, maybe get a change of glasses, huh? Your glasses look stupid. How about that?
Actually,
there you guys go.
I like grammar too. Thank you for your correction.
Researchers looking at the diversity of Australian English have come a long way. One of the biggest breakthroughs in recent work has been our understanding of Aboriginal Australian English and the ways that it varies between communities around the country and even within those communities.
When it comes to Aboriginal communities, whether they're speaking Creole or Aboriginal English or their own dialect, for example, that accent definitely changes across the regions, varying towns and communities. You can tell the difference between like the Northern Territory mob and the Kimberley mob, and same as the
See, this is too much for me to even comprehend. There's no way I could keep track of all this.
Queensland mob and the New South Wales.
Some of the research that's going...
What is he referring to them as?
And same as...
Say mobs?
The Queensland mob and the New South Wales.
Some of the...
They're called mobs?
Research that's going on.
Like the mafia?
In Aboriginal English is looking... For example, some work that I've done is looking at sound changes. So one of the things that we can rely on about languages is that it will change. You know, that's why older people often have comments on younger people's accents. And certainly the kinds of sound changes that occur in different communities occur at different rates.
Offhand comments might be...
Okay, I've got like light shining in my eyeball. There we go.
Be the end of it for some people. But for a lot of Australians with a voice that falls outside the mainstream, there's a tough choice to make about changing it to meet expectations.
There's been some research projects that I've not been involved in, but where people will play recordings and say, do you think this person's employable? Do you think this person is a nice person? And if they don't sound like a mainstream speaker, they'll have more negative judgments.
And not everyone can do.
You know, I guarantee 100,000% that's the same thing over here in America, particularly with a Southern accent. My God, I guarantee that. People with a Southern accent here in America. probably get discriminatoried against.
Do that, and it absolutely is an obstacle because people can judge you on your accent. People can judge you on the way you talk.
But over here in America, if you showed up with an Australian accent, you're getting the job. You could be totally disqualified and have none of the credentials necessary. You'll get the job.
They may think you're less educated or not as intellectual.
Do you ever find yourself changing your voice for a certain situation or a certain person?
I think I probably did when I was first starting out as a journalist. I really had to make a conscious effort not to have a kind of nasal strine, which is something.
You know, I mean, reporters do that in general anyway. They change their voice entirely. I don't know why. They all put on this fake, you know, this evening, tonight at 7. Over to you, John, to explain the weather.
Sometimes associated with Queensland voices as well. I couldn't work out what the words were for used to, and it's used to.
Do you ever stop yourself like that anymore, or you've just gone, my voice is what it is now?
My voice is what it is. I've been a broadcast journalist for nearly 3 decades, so I think I've.
I mean, it is kind of funny to me because I don't hear anything about her voice, but that's just what I was saying at the beginning. You know, I just can't tell. I just don't pick up on accents very well.
I've earned my chops to speak how I like.
Fair enough.
Like if end up in the remote Kimberley, you know, it doesn't take too long, and then you're back in that sort of local twang. But then if you're hobnobbing it at a ribbon cutting function with distinguished guests, then we'll speak a little more clear and less slangy.
We're not trying to imitate the bloody Pommies.
It's funny because I could barely understand him at first, but once he went to the hobnob voice, I understood every word.
Anyone else, we've got our own way of talking. Australian accent, a bloody good accent.
I've been thinking a lot about how people used to act differently. You know, you look at old footage. And part of it was, look how close. I've seen this on multiple different occasions now, looking at old videos. Why are they like 1 foot away from each other? Well, I mean, they're like 6 inches from each other. That's odd by today's standard.
Australian accent, a bloody good accent.
It is a bloody good accent. Go check out ABC Australia, small and up-and-coming YouTube channel. Link down below. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys tomorrow. Goodbye.